There's a new vocal technique that's been dominating the EDM charts. Huge artists like Fredigan, Bunt, and Bicep have been using it on their tracks, and it's growing more and more popular by the minute. This technique has even created a brand new genre of EDM called Stutter House, and once you hear the vocal effect, you'll understand why. Here's what it sounds like. And today I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can make it in Logic Pro. You'll learn how to make the effect with stock plugins and paid plugins, and then if you stick around till the very last method, I'll show you a very creative way to get unique vocal stutters with just a few clicks and using Logic's drummer track. Let's get started. First things first, you'll need a long sustained vocal to do this. Here's the one that I've chosen for this song. You can use and experiment with other types of vocals that aren't as sustained, but your results may vary. Before you apply this effect, you'll also want to process your vocals so they fit into the mix better. For the vocal that you just heard, I've already processed it, but this video isn't about the processing chain that I would use. It's about how to stutter your vocals. If you want to learn more about how to process your vocals, you can watch a previous video I made on a stock plugin vocal chain I use on my vocals right down in the description below. Or if you want all of the work done for you, I've also got a link to 10 free vocal chains that use only stock plugins you can download from my website. Once you've got a good vocal take and it's nice and processed, it's time to hop into the first method you can do to achieve this stutter effect. This first method that I'll teach you only uses stock plugins. Nice. To do it, we'll put on the tremolo plugin, which is located under the modulation tab. We'll go mono stereo. To get the effect we're going for, we'll want to put the phase at 0 degrees. That means both the left and right channels will modulate the volume accordingly. This waveform represents the change in volume that will happen. If we play this as is, we'll see that we have quarter notes selected according to our BPM. We will modulate this according to quarter note. Let's hear it. That's really great. We can change the depth or how much volume gets taken away here. I'd like to keep it at 100% for this vocal effect though. We can also change the smoothing or how sharp the peaks are. Closer I get to 0%, the more choppy the vocals will sound. I like somewhere maybe 40%. We can also affect the symmetry here to get more of a transient if we want to, or have more of the actual vocal itself. You can already hear kind of that sidechain pumping effect. Another thing we can do is turn off this note here, and this will make it not sync to the BPM of our track. Instead, it will just use hertz to affect it. So there you get the idea of what that sounds like. Now we're going to automate this so that we can use and find a pattern that we like. To make automation easy on this, I'm going to go to read mode here. I'm going to change it to latch, and then I'm going to move one of the knobs here so that it will automatically select it in our automation window. I'll try both methods using one with the hertz method that's not synced to the BPM, and then I'll also try one that is synced to the BPM, and just to show you the difference. So I'll just make something kind of random here. Obviously, if I was going to be using this in a song, I would try something a little bit more tried and true and tested, and then experiment with it. But for this purpose, I just want to demonstrate the sound you can get using this. Let's try it. And already we have something that moves along with the beat of the song. Something I do enjoy doing more though than using this free form is to delete this and use the BPM. As you can see here, now our automation is going to be affected with the BPM. So this will be a 1-bar swell, all the way up to an 8th note swell, all the way up to a 32nd note. We can take it down and affect it as we want. What's cool about this is if you hold a extended period like this 8th note triplet at the end, it will be perfectly in sync with the BPM. Let's hear what this one sounds like. There are a lot of ramped curves though, so it probably won't be perfect, but it will give you an idea of what's possible. Now before we go back, let's make sure we go back to read and latch isn't turned on anymore, and then we can print this into our actual song. already sounds pretty cool. And that's the basics of the first method I would use to get the stutter vocal effect. It's not as creative as the last method I'll show you, and it's also not as in-depth, but it still sounds really awesome, and it all uses stock plugins. Now let's learn about a second method that you can use for that stutter vocal effect using a paid plugin. For the second technique to get some stutter vocals, we'll use a paid plugin called the LFO tool by Expert Records. This plugin will give us more in-depth control over our vocal sound. Let's put it on the track and check it out. When you first open LFO tool, you'll see something kind of similar to the tremolo setting. What this is going to do is affect the volume of the incoming signal and put it through this filter here. In this case, our rate is a quarter note once again. So let's just hear what this sounds like. What's cool about the LFO tool is we can make whatever kind of patterns we want. We can also affect this rate and actually automate it like we just did before with the tremolo. I would use this method in the same way I would use that tremolo method. I would affect the rate like I would before, and I would be able to perfectly carve out exactly the peaks and valleys that I'm looking for in my signal. You can even get really weird with it. Sounds pretty cool. What I also like about the LFO tool is there are a bunch of presets. If you go into Transcate, you'll see we already have kind of a rhythmic setting here. And I like this. I'm going to actually turn the depth down ever so slightly because this is a bit too choppy for me. And I'm going to turn the smoothness up here as well so that it's not as choppy as this is. Let's just check out what this sounds like. So we can automate this rate once again to get something even cooler. We can go through some of these presets and just get some really cool things. Let's check out Transcate 5. This paid plugin gives you more control than the stock plugin does, but it pretty much does the same thing. It's affecting the volume of the signal and then modulating it to the BPM of the song, and then through some automation, you can get some really cool sounding effects. That leads me into the last method and the most creative method that I found for getting vocal stutters. I use this if I'm looking for some creative inspiration. And the way that we're going to use method 3 is by using stock plugins once again, so don't worry about any paid plugins, but we're going to sidechain the drummer plugin in Logic to a noise gate over the vocals. This is what the final result sounds like, and I'll show you how to do it. So I'll just demonstrate how I made this. I went up to track, new session player or SI track. I go into drummer right here. Let's choose modern house. We'll go into electronic drummer. We'll go into modern house. And I really only want the hi-hats for this. So I'm going to turn off this, and I'll just turn on the hi-hats. And what this will do is it will make a pattern of these hi-hats. I can change the complexity as I want, but this is all going to be auto-generated, so I don't really have to worry about this. Then once I have this bus, I can go into my noise gate here. I've already made one doing the same exact method. I just wanted to show you how I did it. I can go into my example here. I can add a noise gate through Dynamics, noise gate. I can sidechain it to that same bus, and then what will happen is this noise gate will only open when it's triggered by this track. I can go back into here so you can hear it really just coming there. You can affect the hold. The hold will keep it open for a longer period of time after it crosses the threshold. The attack is how long it takes after it crosses the threshold for it to actually open. And the release is the opposite. Once it drops down below the threshold, how long does it take to close again? And what's cool is if you go back in here, this is all connected, so we can change this again. As this changes, so does our vocal. This gives you less creative options when it turns to the final sound, but it can be a really cool way of getting some things and rhythms that you might not have guessed earlier. One important note is that this drum track should have no output at all. All that we're using this for as a trigger for the sidechain of the noise gate here. We don't want this to have any sound. We don't want this to come out of the speakers. Feel free to mess around with adding other instruments into this drummer track to get some even more creative possibilities. And that would conclude the 3 methods that I would use to make Stutter House. It is a really cool effect, and when I heard it for the first time, I knew exactly what they were doing, and I wanted to show it to you guys because I know that it's so popular. I'd imagine this effect continues to get more and more popular as the rise of Stutter House becomes more of a household name. See what I did there? Now it's your turn. Go and experiment with these 3 methods that I just detailed. Tell me which one works best for you in the comments down below. And while you're down there, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and join the Music by Maddie community. We make videos like this all the time. If you like this video, you're probably interested in vocals. One of the hardest parts about mixing vocals is to get them to sit perfectly in the pocket of the mix. And if that's something you're struggling with, I made a video about a technique I use all the time to get great results. Go watch it in the description below.